Hello, everyone. This is Andres Restart. I should be joined by my good friend Brandon. How you doing today, buddy?
Doing good, doing very well.
Wow.
It is
Apologize.
a little loud.
Yeah. Is that a good level?
It sounds pretty good. Maybe
Yeah.
touch quiet, but it's fine.
I can make it a little louder. I just want to find the right balance.
Right.
How's
It's
that?
also, I mean, that's pretty good. I think that's pretty
Yeah.
good right there. We'll see what the
Cool.
what the comments has to say, but on my end, it sounds pretty good.
Yes. Hello, everyone in the chat. Let me know how everything is looking and sounding. If the background music is too loud or distracting, let me know so I can balance that out. Let me know how Brandon and I sound, how we look. I'd appreciate it. There may be a surprise guest coming on a little bit later. We shall see. I don't know.
Woohoo.
Maybe. Okay, no guarantees. I'm honestly not sure. Really am not.
Who can
But
say?
we'll see. There's a chance. It's like a rumor. I heard.
Right.
But I can't. I don't know because it's
Heard
not certain
rumblings.
until it happens.
Whispers on the wind.
Yeah. But yes, tonight we are going to continue the excitement and discussion on the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. We will talk a little bit about Xenoblade Chronicles X as well, though. So we will touch on that. I'll probably get into that a little bit sooner. But
Yes.
for the most part, we're going to be talking about why we're excited for this presentation. Yeah, it's going to be I mean, I think we're all convinced it's going to be a great presentation. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I really have to do any more convincing or arguing there.
I feel like at this point, you may not have, you don't have to think it's going to be the best presentation in the world, but if you don't think it's at least going to be good, I feel like you're just being cynical because there's no reason to believe it's not going to be at least pretty damn good.
I mean, put it this way: if this Nintendo Direct is not pretty much one of the best directs ever,
Right.
that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, because we're talking about Nintendo revealing their next generation. This is a very important presentation. This isn't a presentation to tell us about the next 3 months. Well, I mean, it actually is, but it's the next few months are supposed to be about the beginning of their generation, right? So if they don't have the stuff to really excite us and engage the fan base and get us eager for the Switch 2, then they're not going to have a good start to their console. So that would be bad. But we don't expect that. We expect it's actually going to be a very, very good thing. I'm actually working on a video. I initially wanted it out today, but the way things are I mean, I haven't put it out yet, so it's not coming out today. It'll be out tomorrow probably. But it's basically me talking about how Nintendo has clearly been holding back for this moment, for the beginning of the Switch 2 generation. So there'll be a video on that tomorrow. But yeah, this presentation is gonna be cool. We are excited about it. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about it. Something that I really want to get into is Metroid Prime 4, because there is a rumor. We can call it a rumor. I would say a pretty good rumor coming from Kiwi Talks. So some of you may be familiar with him. He is someone on YouTube and Twitter who interviews different real gaming developers, like from Retro Studios, Valve, Bethesda. They've interviewed several people who've worked on the Metroid Prime series in the past. So there's plenty of reason to think that they're well connected, right?
Right.
And they said some pretty awesome things about Metroid Prime 4 in the Switch 2 Direct earlier this week. So we're going to talk about that. But before we do, let's check in with the chat. I had asked how everything is looking and sounding. I don't think anyone told me it was terrible, so that's good. Chris Lanzer is looking and sounding great. I appreciate you. Thank you. I believe Connor was asking, said, let me guess, it's Botox Games. Bo is not coming on tonight.
Nope.
I would like to get Bo on soon, though. For sure.
Of course.
Yeah, Bo and I are always chatting, privately about, oh my God, this happened. Oh, we're screwed. Or yeah, we're always talking about what's going on behind the scenes. But we'll probably do some sort of discussion pre-Switch 2, and I'd assume also post-Switch 2 Direct. James Champagne, this is Andres Restart, and today I'm talking about graphical fidelity. Oh, I may. Red Dragon 72Q. I'm only looking for one bit of info. Release day. Let's go. Yeah.
That's a big one. That's a big one for sure.
For sure.
Except
Jacob.
we already know it. It's May 15th.
Well, we think. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't.
Maybe you know.
I know it in my heart of hearts.
Yeah. Jacob added me, hey, Andres, how are you doing today? Feeling better from basketball last week? Hope everyone in the chat is having a great week as well. I echo those sentiments. I hope everyone in the chat is having a great week. And I'll say that I am feeling better from basketball last week. I'll tell you that my groin injury, don't notice any. I think I mentioned that I was a little worried that it might be like a minor hernia, just because there was definitely like some kind of like a bump, right? It was a bigger bump, and it's gone. Like it's totally gone. There's barely any bruising. There's maybe a little bit of minor tenderness in some parts, but I'm fine. Like I don't need to go to the hospital or anything. I'm good. Yeah.
That's good.
It took a few weeks, but it's normal. So that's good. My knees are fine, right? I think the thing is basketball is pretty tough, and I need to build up better like strength in my ligaments and my muscles to deal better with some of the things with basketball, right? Especially because I'm in my early 30s and I spent years not playing sports or working out consistently in my 20s. So it's kind of like now that I'm getting back into it, I'm like in some ways almost like doing this battle to reclaim a little bit of my youth. So, which is not easy given that this is, if you don't work for it, if you don't exercise, if you don't stretch, you lose it, and it's very hard to get back. So yeah, I mean it's been a battle, but it's been fun. So I'm doing better. Yeah. Thank you for asking. Chrono Rig. Been a member for 29 straight months. That is impressive. Thank you for being around all this time, Chrono. And I'd also like to point out, Dragon Spyro, Zelda Ganon has become a member. They've begun their journey as part of the Andres Restart Legends membership. So I appreciate you. Thank you for being on. Yeah. Did I say 29 straight years? I've definitely meant months.
29 straight years.
Yeah, that'd be great if, sometime down the road, like many years from now, we could talk about members being around for 29 straight years. YouTube's not even 29 years old.
No.
That's wild. We'll see where things are 29 years from now or 27 years from now or something. But because I think that's basically when membership started, at least on this channel, about 2 years ago.
Right.
If you guys hear something weird, I'm peeling skin off a tangerine. Yeah. Wanted a snack, and I haven't done grocery shopping, so the only snacks I have are healthy fruit, which
they're the best kind of snacks.
Yeah. They're good, but they don't really help me with my hunger.
That's fair. It's not exactly super high on calories.
No. But it's good. I'm enjoying this. I like tangerines.
Oh, I love fruit. Fruit's great.
First super chat of the night. James Champagne. It's all love, Andres. I just remember you saying this a lot, and I like to poke fun. I've immensely enjoyed all of your content, especially Metroid Prime 4 content. You kept me sane. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the kind words. It's all good. I didn't even think it was like an insult. I knew it was a joke, so we're good. But yeah, let's talk about Metroid Prime 4. I think that's a good idea.
I think so.
Yeah. And after I talk about Metroid Prime 4, I'll get to Chrono's super chat here in a bit. Because I think that's, like, I'm reading, that's going to be its own conversation. So I'm not going to put it up yet, but once we talk about Metroid Prime 4 here, we'll get to it. All right. So as I mentioned, right, Kiwi Talk said some really exciting things about Metroid Prime 4.
Right.
I already explained why they're credible. They clearly have contacts with a whole bunch of different developers in the industry, including Retro Studios. So what Kiwi said, I'm trying to pull it up. Let's see. How long ago did they say it? Man, it's been a few days already. Okay, here we go. All right, cool. Where is my... Oh, perfect. Okay. So, Reese Kiwi Talks Riley said, in less than a month, in the Switch 2 Direct, you'll see that Nintendo and Retro were keeping their cards close to their chest with Metroid Prime 4 for this exact moment. The true unveiling will blow everything else in the Direct out of the water. The true unveiling of Metroid Prime 4. That's what he's getting at here.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, that's pretty much it. If you check the thread, he's asked about, if it's going to be an April Direct. He says, Nintendo are constantly tweaking Directs right down to the last minute. But as of right now, I'm 90% certain it will be in the Direct. Which to me, that basically says, like, for anyone thinking this is just like an opinion piece, it's not. This is him suggesting, like he has heard, that Metroid Prime 4 will be in the Direct. And that Nintendo has been intentionally keeping this game close to their chest. But in the Switch 2 presentation, they are going to fully showcase it. And I'm sure there's some opinion involved here, right? But he's saying that it's going to blow everything else in the Direct out of the water, which is a very big statement.
That is a crazy thing to say.
But like Brandon, like what are your initial thoughts from seeing that? Like what do you make of it?
What I make of it, it's interesting because it's very kind of subjective, the last part, like it'll blow everything out of the water. And I'm curious in what way, because you could take that from a couple different perspectives, right?
Graphical fidelity.
Right, graphical fidelity. That's one way that you could take that. And does that mean that the Switch 2 enhancements for this game make it to where it's perhaps in some people's mind, maybe not everybody's, but in some people's mind, the best looking game shown in the Direct? I think that is possible. I mean, it's Retro Studios. They're an insane team. I wouldn't be shocked if they have been working on a Switch 2 version for a while, and maybe even before it was officially asked of them by Nintendo. They seem to be kind of retro active in their stuff, right? They made a demo for Metroid Prime 4 to try to get that back. Before they were even working on that. So they seem to kind of just do stuff on their own. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Switch 2 version is very, very nice. But it could be other things. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to be graphical fidelity. It could be talking about gameplay. Maybe there's some kind of really cool... Because what we've seen so far seems to be very similar to like 1 through 3. Like kind of smaller areas, very linear. From what we can tell, maybe some bigger areas, but it's hard to say. Some of the later scenes with the forest seems to maybe indicate there could be bigger areas, but we don't really see for sure. But maybe what we see in this really just has some gameplay thing that just puts it above everything else in the Direct in some people's minds. So it's really hard to say like what this means. But yeah, I do believe that Metroid Prime 4 is another game from Nintendo that they've shown off, but not really. It's like when we first saw Mario Odyssey. It's like we didn't even know about Cappy. We didn't know about the main mechanics of that game till E3. I feel like it's going to be the same way with Prime 4, where like the main mechanics of this game, we don't know them yet. We don't really know what this game is about yet.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much share these same sentiments. Like, we only got a taste. That was a small 2-minute trailer. And, I think that trailer did a good job of telling people, hey, this is Metroid Prime. That's what that trailer did. And in a sense, I also feel that the trailer was Nintendo teasing their future, teasing Switch 2. Like when I saw that to me, that's how it felt in the June Direct. And now like I feel more strongly about it because look where we're at. Clearly, it seems pretty obvious that they're saving it for the Direct, right?
Yeah.
So they showed off this one game to close that June presentation. They had big games to talk about in that presentation, but the closer was Metroid Prime 4. I thought that was Nintendo sending a message. This is the biggest deal of everything else there.
Right.
And now we hear what Kiwi Talks is saying here, and it kind of helps to support that thinking that Nintendo sees this game as something special. They are keeping it close to their chest, and when they show it off to the world, it's going to be impressive. Now, as you said, like, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean in terms of like even more impressive visuals? Does that mean just like the controller functionality? Is it a combination of all that? Is it just the game itself? Is the game itself going to be something that is just extremely impressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm gonna say all of the above. Like,
yeah, it definitely could be.
I think it's all of the above. Maybe call that, you know, hopium or what have you, but I mean, Retro Studios has never made a bad game. All their games are
right.
top tier.
Oh yeah.
You know, like if Metroid Prime 4, I mean, put it this way: if Metroid Prime 4 is only on par with the worst Metroid Prime game that Retro Studios has developed, it will still be a Game of the Year candidate in most award shows at the end of the year. From a critical acclaim perspective, and I think it's safe to, I mean, maybe it's not safe, but I think it's reasonable to think that it's going to be on par, if not better, than prior Metroid games. So, you know, this is going to be a big deal. Yeah. And I more so kind of think about, like, what is it about this game that is going to help it to set itself apart from everything else? Because it is a Switch 1 game, right? Visually, it's impressive for a Switch 1 game, but for a Switch 1 game. I do think that the game's going to hold up, you know, because I think in this day and age, like, we're not, like, we don't assume every game's just going to be, you know, extremely ultra realistic and all that stuff, right? So, like, I mean, that's why we're okay with playing a lot of Switch games. Like, Switch games aren't cutting edge, but, you know, we still find them pleasant.
Right, and not every developer hits the same graphical fidelity for any given target platform. Like, you can assume that this game is probably going to hold up very well against other games. Like, it's already probably by far the best looking game on the Switch. It beats out, you know, 99% of other games on the platform. So I wouldn't be surprised if it still holds up to a lot of games on Switch 2. But I am kind of, you know, without a lot of Switch 2 enhancements, which it very well may have, and I kind of think it will. But without that, I'm kind of like, how is it going to stand up to something like the next 3D Mario, which is going to be ground up for the Switch 2, I would assume, right? Like, maybe it started development initially for Switch 1, but at this point, I would assume the project would have been moved to, you know, focus on the capabilities of Switch 2. So that's definitely going to be something very impressive. And I'm curious how Prime 4 will hold up to that.
There's angles to this conversation because you mentioned that maybe 3D Mario even started development for Switch 1 initially. Like, let's say that's the case. Like, what if a lot of games started for Switch 1 and Nintendo's like, you know what, hold up. Let's save this for Switch 2, right? Like,
I think it's very possible.
You know, what if, like,
Mario
the first
Kart
Nintendo games,
one of those.
maybe, right? Because we never got a mainline Mario Kart for Switch, so maybe at one point they were thinking, oh, maybe we should just make a new Mario Kart for Switch, and then they're like, well, look how well it's selling, let's just save this for Switch 2. And, you know, it's interesting that you bring this up because, like, just think about both of those situations. The fact that Nintendo might have considered making a Mario Odyssey 2, but didn't for Switch 1, and Nintendo might have considered a brand new Mario Kart for Switch 1, but didn't ultimately. Like, maybe both these projects started off as Switch 1 titles, to your point. And what I find interesting about that is that you look at both these studios, EPD groups in 8 and 9, right? Both these studios haven't put out a totally brand new game, like, from the ground up on Switch since 2017. It has been 8 years. These EPD groups are some of the best developers in the industry. And so you're saying that, like, they couldn't come out with one legitimate game, full game, in 8 years? I think that there's room that they could have made 2. And so
Yeah.
we go back to the speculation that, well, what if 3D Mario and Mario Kart did start off as Switch 1 games, but at one point they made a decision, let's make a shift. And so perhaps these games were saved for Switch 2 while they started working on another project at the same time. And then we go into the whole Donkey Kong situation, right? How there is some reason to think that maybe the Odyssey team had some hand in a Donkey Kong project. So what if that's the second project that the Mario team has been working on, right? EPD 8, I believe.
Right.
And then what is that other project that the Mario Kart team could be working on outside of Mario Kart? Like, what if Donkey Kong and whatever this Mario Kart team has after Mario Kart are both coming out in either the second or third year of Switch 2? And so we have like some pretty crazy things. Now, I don't think we'll see them in the Switch 2 Direct, right? I think what we see in the Switch 2 Direct from these teams is 3D Mario and Mario Kart.
Yeah.
And so kind of coming back here, because I realize we're going on a tangent, right? To say that like Metroid Prime 4, right, is gonna be more impressive in these games, like if they have a Switch 1 root, as does Prime 4, then maybe it actually does stand a very reasonable chance of setting itself apart from the other games in the Direct, because quite frankly, a lot of these games are not going to be really truly pushing the Switch 2 at launch. Like, and the thing about that is that oftentimes launch titles aren't going to totally push a console.
Yeah.
So, there could be something there. And, whenever we have this conversation about Metroid Prime 4 being cross-generation, I always see a lot of people make the argument that, well, listen, this is made for a Switch 1 game, made for Switch 1, so whatever they do, it's just not going to be that impressive of a Switch 2 game. But that's with the assumption that they weren't developing with Switch 2 in mind early on. What if they were? Like, what if they already had a pretty good idea this is probably going to be a Switch 2 game well in advance? We don't know that, right? That's making an assumption. We don't know either in either direction. We just don't know. But something that I think is seemingly clear. Just all I was going to say is that then at least for the last couple years, it looks like Nintendo has known that Prime 4 is going to be a Switch 2 title.
Probably.
Because like I don't, if we go back to 2021, 2022, maybe not, but like as of like 2023, like once we already kind of hearing all the whispers of Switch 2, like I think there's a reasonable chance to think that they were like, let's not do this now. Let's save this for Switch 2.
I mean,
what were you gonna say?
It's very possible. I don't remember what I was going to say. I forgot what I was going to say. All
right.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking
something about what you were saying.
Right. I was talking about how, a lot of consoles, like that first wave of games, isn't really pushing the hardware.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I was going to say that I think Retro Studios' engine is set up very well to scale to much more powerful hardware, because they have a lot of very advanced features in that engine, so they can easily scale it up and do things that are possible in the Switch 1 version, but at lower fidelity, or they can add more fidelity into these features on Switch 2. I think they would look a lot better. And their engine supports like realistic materials. They use PBR materials, so they can add different lighting effects and stuff into the engine in the Switch 2 version that the Switch 1 version may not be able to run. It really just depends on how much work they want to put into it, but their engine is very well set up to scale, I feel, to the Switch 2, much more than many other engines from Nintendo first parties.
Well, I mean, I would say that games in general, like, I agree with what you're saying, right? It's a thought I've also had. But I would also say that in general, Nintendo games, not even Nintendo games, like just this current era, games have been more scalable. Like that's just kind of more of a normal thing, because you do have all these different platforms that are running these same games, but at different spec ranges, right? And there's actually a great deal of variance there, right? Because you have consoles like the Steam Deck and the Switch that are getting a lot of games, but they are vastly underpowered compared to, obviously, a max end PC, but even under that, right, the PS5 Pro, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, the Xbox Series S. Like there's quite a range, right? So I think in general in this day and age, games are very scalable. So that argument that Metroid Prime 4 won't really be able to be pushed that well on Switch 2 because it was made with Switch 1 in mind initially. Like I think there's a few different angles that you can look at it from and be like, well, I don't know how much weight that actually holds. I think that might be more of an old school like way of thinking versus new school of thought, right? Like another example
Although
of the old school way of thinking versus new school.
Well, what you're talking about is more reverse of what they're saying, because if you want to scale up a game versus scale down a game, that's a very different thing. Because scaling down a game from something that you already have like high-end assets for, it's very different than taking a game that you made for a low-end platform and scaling that up. I think that Prime is in a very good position for that, but I don't think not every Nintendo game is, and not every Nintendo engine is. For example, it's like something like Super Mario
There was a
Wonder.
Miyamoto interview.
Go on.
What about Mario Wonder?
I'm just saying it's a game that does not scale very much higher. That was the end of my point.
I mean, like, what else are you gonna do with it? Like, you make it sharper, right? So you're saying that like what are you saying? Is it easier to scale up or scale down? I mean, to me, it seems circumstantial. Like it kind of.
I would say it's easier to scale down because typically that means lowering settings and reducing the amount of assets, whereas scaling up requires creating higher fidelity assets than you originally had, unless you create it at a high fidelity and then scale down for your target platform. But that isn't often the case if you're targeting just a single platform, right?
Okay.
So there is different things to consider. There's actual like creation and art that needs to be made. Now, when you are scaling down, depending on how much work you want to do, sometimes you do need to create dedicated assets, especially for something like a Switch port. You might want to create new art for that that's lower fidelity, that's custom. But oftentimes developers don't actually do that. They just, lower the resolution or lower the fidelity of the assets that already exist to a point where it can run.
Yeah.
So it's a much different beast, but I don't think for Prime 4 specifically, I don't think that argument really holds up because their engine, I do think, scales up as well as down. But not every Nintendo engine is like super scalable in that way. But I think the Switch is such a low power system that it's very easy to make games look a lot better in the constraints of an engine in general, just because they're so constrained for the most part. I mean, there's some stuff like Smash Ultimate, like there's not really much you can do for that. You could add anti-aliasing, that'd be nice. Maybe up the shadow resolution, but I doubt they have like much higher resolution textures on file. Maybe you could add, but the models are what they are. That just is how it is. But with something like Prime 4, you can add all these new lighting effects and stuff that the engine likely could support very easily if it doesn't already support it. That would scale much higher than the Switch 1 version.
Okay. So the thing I wanted to bring up, though, is that I was trying to find it. I remember reading a Miyamoto interview from not that long ago, probably 2023. I don't want to put a year because memory is a fickle thing. I might be combining memories here, but I do believe, and if someone can think of it in the chat, please let me know. But there was a Miyamoto interview where he talked about how a lot of games they're making now are scalable. And it's interesting, right? Because you go back to when Nintendo kind of unified their gaming divisions, right? We started seeing a lot of like Wii U games getting demakes on 3DS, and I mean now everything's on one platform, but there's handheld mode and there's docked mode, right? So like a lot of different games are made with multiple spec ranges in mind, and we have talked about in the past, like sometimes we see games like remember like early Tears of the Kingdom footage, right? like early Tears of the Kingdom footage, that looked really good, and it may have been the case that was just like the game running on PC, right? And they have to kind of have to scale it down a little bit so it works on a Switch appropriately. And so, thinking about Metroid Prime 4, like it may very well be the case that Retro Studios has a game that's very scalable, and so the Switch 2 version, it might not be really that much of a stretch to say that it could see some interesting improvements. And something I saw Wolfrose Booster put up earlier, Metroid Prime is the type of game that would look amazing with ray tracing. DLSS makes that easier. Like, what if that is kind of what they do? Like, what if they want to kind of highlight the advantages of DLSS? And so Metroid Prime 4, it is whatever it is on Switch, right? Maybe a 900p dynamic resolution at 60 FPS, right?
That seems to be what it is from the trailer.
Yeah. But then maybe on Switch 2, it's 1440p, right? At 60 FPS with ray tracing.
Ooh, interesting.
That would be very, and maybe there's a few other little things like better draw distance or what have you. But yeah, like they could do that. That would be a great way to kind of just show that, hey, this is some of the visual leaps you can sort of see with DLSS.
Right. I would be curious how they would use ray tracing, because there's a lot of different ray tracing effects that you can use. Right? You could use like ray trace reflections, ray trace ambient occlusion, ray trace sun shadows, ray traced indoor shadows. You can try to ray trace every light source. I would like to see ray tracing from like weapon lights.
Okay.
For like diffuse lighting. That'd be nice. Just like having the light from your weapon shots actually light up the environment with ray tracing.
Right? Because they got rid of it in Prime Remastered, like that whole like
it's very like
lighting
subtle
thing, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, vertice lighting just doesn't really work in modern games.
Yeah, but it would be interesting that if in the Switch 2 version, like the arm can't just lighting up the environment like crazy, and it's done with ray tracing. Nice. Like, that would be super cool.
Ray trace reflections would be interesting.
Yeah.
Although in Metroid, you don't typically see a ton of like shiny reflective materials. There's some for sure, but there's not like a ton of mirror like reflections in those games. Sure. So I'm not sure how much that would be beneficial unless they did like a very, because you can do ray tracing for like technically in the real world everything reflects light to a degree. So you can do ray tracing for rougher surfaces. It's just much more expensive. So I'm not sure if they could run that or not. So I'm curious how they would do it, but I am very curious what kind of ray tracing support we're going to see on Switch 2. That is, for me, the biggest question mark in terms of its graphical capabilities. Like, how much ray tracing are we going to actually see? Because in the Series S, it's very often that the ray tracing is either limited in terms of like it doesn't have as many ray tracing effects, so it might only have one instead of like 2 or 3 on the bigger consoles, or it just doesn't have ray tracing at all. And whereas like the Series X version does. But the Switch does have, it's going to have 2 extra gigabytes of memory, which is a big reason why sometimes the Series S doesn't have it, because it just can't fit the appropriate things into memory. So I'm curious. And of course, NVIDIA's ray tracing acceleration is much better than AMD's. So I'm curious what kind of performance we're going to get with ray tracing and how many Nintendo games are going to actually support ray tracing.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll I guess we'll see.
So we don't see any signs of ray tracing in Mario Kart. I'll tell you that. No such signs so far. Maybe, but it's no obvious signs.
Yeah. There was the initial reports from 2023 at Gamescom is that the Matrix demo had ray reconstruction, and it was supposedly like pretty impressive. Like it was up to par, if not better, than what we saw on PS5 from that perspective.
That is the other thing, because it should support ray reconstruction. Yeah, which means that it can run ray tracing at a lower resolution, a lower fidelity, and then use DLSS. Instead of upscaling the resolution of the entire image, you actually upscale the resolution of the ray tracing itself. So you get a much cleaner looking ray trace reflection, or better diffused lighting, less noise, because it also uses a denoiser. I don't know if I assume most people know what ray tracing noise is. It's like, you know, like if you're in a dark room and you look around, you kind of see like the dots, or you take a camera, a photo in a low light, and there's a lot of noise. It's kind of the
Sure.
same thing.
Yeah.
It happens when you don't have enough fidelity. I'll just say in general, there's not enough fidelity in your ray tracing. That can happen, and you have denoisers to kind of smooth that out, get rid of that. And so yeah, it should have a better resolve from a lower
Dude, I'm
resolution to save
excited.
performance. I really just want to see what they're doing with ray tracing on the console.
I want to see the game, man. I want to see the game and
Yeah.
how it's gonna look. But I want to go in a little bit of a different direction, right? We're still sticking with Metroid for a little bit here because we talked about like potential visual improvements. I think like the whole mouse control thing, like that's like almost, it seems like almost a given, right?
Yeah.
But what I want to talk about is like the game itself. Like, could it be that this game is gonna have a little bit of that Breath of the Wild moment? Something I've been talking about for years, and I think people have taken out of context. Like when I say a Breath of the Wild moment, it's not so much that like I think that Metroid Prime 4 is gonna win like every Game of the Year award. It's gonna change how we look at first-person adventure games forevermore. It's going to sell 35 million copies. Like, I mean, those things would be nice, right? But it's more so this from the perspective of what Breath of the Wild meant to the Zelda franchise. I think maybe Metroid Prime 4 could be something similar for the Metroid franchise, where it does reach a significantly larger audience. It does push the series to greater heights. And yeah, it is considered to be one of the best games in the series, and it does evolve the series overall. Like, that's what I mean in terms of a Breath of the Wild moment. And if that happens to Metroid, like, it would be a big deal. Like, if Metroid as Wilberforce was saying, if it sold 10 million copies, I would call that absolutely a Breath of the Wild moment for Metroid Prime 4, even though that would just be a third of less than a third of Breath of the Wild sales, right? Of course, we won't know because we'll have to kind of see if it has evergreen sales, if it sells for years to come. But in order to do something like that, you do need the game to appeal to a significantly larger audience. And, that also comes with the thinking that the series is going to evolve, right? So when we talk about this game supposedly having its true unveiling and blowing everything else out of the water, like outside of the visuals and controls, like what else about this game could they do that we're going to look at and be like, whoa, is there, are we going to see this game, right? And it's people are going to watch this in the direct, and people are like, oh my god, I'm not a Metroid fan, but I think I might need to become one. Like how much of that is going to happen when we see this game in the direct? Like, does Nintendo truly look at this game as something like that they're like, whoa, we can't wait till we show the world this, because their socks are going to fly right off? Like, I get excited about that. And to your point from earlier, right? Like, we look at Mario Odyssey. First time we saw that game, people didn't even think it was real. Then we got our first trailer. It looked cool, but we didn't know anything about Cappy. And Cappy is what makes that game so unique. Right. And so, is there going to be like that moment for Metroid? I mean, let's talk about Zelda for a moment, right? Like, you look at Tears of the Kingdom. We already knew it was a big open air game, but we didn't know, like, what was going to make it unique, and that was Ultra Hand and all the other abilities, right? But then they still held off on showing off the depths, right? So there was actually several elements to that game that really set itself apart from others. And so with Metroid Prime 4, what might be those differences that really set itself apart, and that we were like, whoa, you can do that stuff? And so there's so much potential there. We really don't know what they're going to do. We're going to finally get a proper understanding of what this game is in the Switch 2 Direct.
Right. I have a feeling that it's going to go, not to discount the gameplay, because I think that's still going to be something really special. They're going to make a lot of improvements, but I just want to maybe touch on something that you maybe didn't bring up. I think the cutscenes in this game are going to be something else. I think we see a little bit of that in the trailer, but they don't show much. Voice acting could be a thing, but I think the production quality of these trailers is going to be big. I remember Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it has some super impressive, really well-directed cutscenes that just look absolutely insane.
So does
And I'm
Tears of the
just
Kingdom.
yes, I would agree. I think Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is maybe more technically impressive. Just because I think that game is a lower scale, so it has a bit better graphics in general.
Sure.
But I think Prime 4 has even better technical, graphics.
I mean, we saw a little bit of cutscenes in the trailer, right? Like
Yeah,
that one quick
super
scene where
impressive.
Samus like rolls and there's an explosion and Silex comes out. And we see the mock
See
droids
these
behind
like
him.
the explosion was super nice looking. It's like this very big volumetric explosion with this super nice smoke effect. I'm not sure if it's a volumetric smoke effect or not, but it looked very good. The cutscenes were just super impressive. It's very, very nice depth of field. I imagine that's something that could scale very nicely to something like 1440p or 4K and look amazing. There was some great effects going on. Some very, very nice motion blur. The cutscenes just looked like they were, we only saw a small snippet, but I could already tell these are going to be some very, very nice, very well directed cutscenes. And my point about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is, like, those are so good. But imagine, like, Prime 4 has better visuals than that. And, like, what can they do with the cutscenes? Because the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 doesn't need to have these absolute huge scale to their cutscenes, so they're kind of limiting in that way in terms of what they can do. But like Prime 4, like what are they going to be able to push?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I do love that you brought up the whole point of cutscenes because I agree that I think one way that they can really help Metroid to kind of reach a larger audience and kind of set itself apart a little bit is with the cinematics.
Yeah,
because it is a beautiful game, and Metroid does have strong story, so might as well capitalize on that. It might even do a better job from that perspective than Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom did, in the sense that the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom trailers are some of the most epic, intriguing trailers there are. And then when people actually go and play the game, they're like, "Whoa, where's all this amazing story that was teased in the trailers?" Like it is there, but it's very segmented. And so I think with Metroid Prime 4, obviously there's going to be a lot of just like gameplay and isolation, but I do think that there is going to be a pretty awesome story as well. And they may be able to use a trailer with some of these epic cutscenes and really great gameplay moments and just really cool engagements between Samus and NPCs and enemies whenever they happen. Like you can put together a really, really hype trailer and people might see that and they'll just get sold on the hype, Like there was so much hype with that final Breath of the Wild trailer, and there was so much hype with that final Tears of the Kingdom trailer. I don't think this is going to be, I mean, it might be the final Metroid Prime. It's not going to actually be the final Metroid Prime 4 trailer. But, Switch 2 is coming out in May, then, like, it would be, the penultimate fight. Like, I don't know. Like, there's going to be a lot of coverage on the game, though, because there's going to be a previews event, there'll be an overview. Forget the whole timing of like, if it's going to be the final trailer or the second to last. We don't know. But it's going to be a big, epic trailer is the main point.
For sure.
So that's going to be exciting. I do want to get to the chat. And then there's a super chat I said I would get to from earlier. So I want to get to that there. Unless there's something else you want to add right now, Brandon.
No.
Okay. Greetings, Art Vandelay. Wiley Tiger asks, is the Metroid Prime 4 logo a black hole? Yes. It's in the same shape as a black hole, like the way we depict it. Like that is the shape. You think about Beyond, there's literally a portal in Metroid Prime 4. Like I think it's almost like an obvious. I mean, it's not actually obvious, right? Because I know a lot of people have seen the trailer and don't know, but yeah. I believe it's definitely at least a nod towards a black hole or a portal, right? There are the theories that a black hole is an entrance to a wormhole, which leads to a white hole.
Right.
Essentially, it's a portal. So, yeah, I think so. Let's see here. Yeah, Wilbur First Booster here says Retro Studios always target 60 FPS. That will probably be the case on both Switches. Yes.
Yep.
I don't think Metroid
The
Prime 4 and Switch 1 is gonna be 30. It's gonna be 60. I
no.
think we already have a trailer
Yeah, we
for
already
Switch
seen it
1
at
that's at
60.
60. The 60 FPS gameplay running on Switch 1. Like we already that
Yeah.
what it exists. Yeah. So for sure, we're on the same page there. Connor added me. By the way, we're now getting Lego Pokemon. So since we got Lego Mario, Zelda, Animal Crossing, and now Pokemon, I wonder if Kirby's going to be the next as Lego since he was on Nano Block. A Kirby Lego would be fun.
Nice.
I mean, I think it's kind of like going to come to everything, especially the franchises that do have a large audience of children. That is Kirby, right? I mean, Mario, Pokemon, they have it as well. Franchises like F-Zero, Star Fox, Metroid, Xenoblade, Fire Emblem, those I don't know if they'll get Lego sets anytime soon. I think Pikmin. I feel like Pikmin could get a Lego set though. Pikmin feels like it would work with Lego really
Pikmin
well.
would be amazing.
Yeah. Nishquick Pops asks me thoughts on Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition reviews. To my understanding, on Metacritic it has an 88. Back on Wii U, its Metacritic score was an 84. So Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is being reviewed all quite favorably in comparison to the Wii U version, which is interesting because oftentimes when we see like remasters or enhancements or remakes, they review poorly. Not poorly is the wrong word. Yeah, they'll score a little bit lower, like a few points, just because the modern standards have increased. Right, so even with the quality of life updates and visual enhancements, the game still review a little bit lower. Like Prime Remastered got a 94 Metacritic, which is, by the way, still insanely high.
Yeah,
right? One of the highest reviewed games of the generation, but it's not a 98 as the original release was. Right, so just something to keep in mind. Like Metroid Prime Remastered, while it is a really good game, the modern standards have caught up a little bit. It wasn't reviewed as favorably, right? And that's the norm. So this is a little bit out of the norm.
The game had a kind of a lower review, maybe than it deserved back on Wii U potentially.
Well, I think people are very just upset with the Wii U situation. But that like, was one of the best issues.
Best Wii U games. That's probably my second favorite Wii U game. Breath of the Wild.
It is my favorite Wii U game. Because I did not play Breath of the Wild, on my Wii U. I played it on my Switch. To me, Breath of the Wild is a Switch game because that's what I played.
I agree. I just because technically,
Yeah.
But if we're allowing for that, then yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles X, best Wii U game.
Yeah. It was the best exclusive Wii U game. Now there's Definitive Edition, so it's no longer fully truly exclusive. But the OG Xenoblade X, remains exclusive. But like looking back at that version, there were issues, and a lot of those issues have been addressed, right? Like you had to download a huge file. You need to buy a solid state drive, or like not a solid state drive, but some kind of hard drive, just to have the game.
If you wanted the digital version, I had the disc, so I had enough space. I think you download the packs.
Okay, you're correct. Like if you had the disc, you would have to use a lot of your internal storage, which was already limited, to have the whole
it's like
game.
15 gigs or something ridiculous.
I had the digital version, but I then had to buy solid state. I keep saying solid state drive because that's like the more modern thing. And I had to buy an external hard drive, in order to play the game appropriately on my Wii U. That was an out of the ordinary thing. But we didn't care we did care. I'm arguing that didn't impact the reviews a little bit. But we were still hyped because we didn't have any games back then. But also the font size.
What else were you playing?
right. That was the game to play, right? But also the font size was
bad.
Ridiculously small. And my eyesight was a lot better then. And it was still very hard to read. I had 20/20 vision back then. I had, like pretty much as good as you can expect with eyesight for a normal human. And it was still pretty bad. That's been fixed, right? Like I'm mentioning like things that, may not seem like that big of a deal, but they did impact the experience for people back then. And now
Right.
they've gone above and beyond that. They've obviously those things, like you just have the game. It's one thing, they've optimized the amount of storage it takes up. The fonts improved. The UI has gone a drastic improvement. There's a variety of quality of life improvements with even the combat. There's I think it's called Quick Recast, if I'm not mistaken. I might be misremembering the name, but it's this extra mechanic they throw into combat where you can do arts more quickly and it recharges.
Right.
So yeah, you don't have to wait for it. Oftentimes, especially early on in Xenoblade games, if you haven't activated certain skills yet, you have to wait for your specials or your arts to build up. So initially the combat starts off a little slow.
Right.
Because of this feature, it's fast. You can jump into using your arts immediately. And so that speeds up the combat, right? And also going outside of the combat.
About that.
I mean, it does. I think it changes around the
So
difficulty.
I liked
right?
the combat a lot in the original version, but I was also a lot younger, so I had a lot more time on my hands.
I don't think
curious how I feel about it now.
Issue. I mean, it's a good thing. I don't think many people are complaining about this. I do think it does impact the difficulty a little bit. The Xenoblade X was already a very hard game, and I do believe that levels haven't changed around, right? So there are still if you want to find tough fights, those still exist. You got that going on.
I mean, it's Xenoblade. You can go just a few, I guess in this game it's a little more distance, but you can go into the wrong area and just all of a sudden just be getting destroyed by something 30, 50 levels higher than you, or even just in the same area, something could be wandering around that's much, much more powerful than you. So I'm not worried about it on that side. I just like the buildup of arts and that kind of early progress, but I don't think it'd be a big deal either way. I'm just curious how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's not a concern to me. But there's just a variety of quality of life updates. There is new stuff with the epilogue, which we wanted because
Xenoblade X end on a cliffhanger.
Exactly. So this is an ideal thing. And visually, the game is improved, not dramatically because the Switch is only so much more powerful than the Wii U, but the colors are more vibrant.
Poppin'.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, and all the characters' faces look a lot better.
Yeah, high resolution.
Yeah, there's some new characters now, and now you can, when you add a character to your party, you don't have to because in the original you would have to go to where they literally physically are in the world to bring them back in. Now there's just a menu, which is how most games work. But there were a lot of weird things like that were kind of annoying.
That was bad.
Right, and so all that's been fixed. So it is objectively a better game.
Man, I remember why I never finished the story of the game and why I did so much side content. I forgot about this because it's not only because I was wanting to do side content, it's because I got to a certain part of the story where you needed a certain level of affinity with a certain character to do that story mission. You could not progress unless you had a certain star affinity, and I had no affinity with them, and I think I needed 3 or 5 stars. I needed a lot, and I just was guess I'm grinding, and I never got enough affinity to do that quest. So hopefully that feature will make people, actually use the other characters. I never did because it was such a pain in the butt.
Yeah, and
to go actually switch out.
Characters do build up with you as well, even when you're not using them. So
thank you.
But all those things make the game easier, right? But that's good.
That's good. That's good because that was horrible. When I realized that I now had to grind it probably would take me 10, 20 hours of grinding to get enough affinity with this person to continue the story. Insane.
Yeah, so I mean, I've mentioned it already, but the UI just looks so much better. It's so clean, it looks so cool. But something else I want to note, I forget what it's called, but there's when you're trying to track an objective, there's a light that shoots out and guides you. It's very clear and obvious in this version. Back on 2015, not so much.
I didn't really have an issue with that back in the day, but I guess that's nice.
I remember getting lost a little bit in X, which is also not the worst thing. But the thing is, there's been a lot of improvements with how Xenoblade games play and what they do to make it easier to understand what to do. And so Xenoblade X has all those improvements. I do want to pull up this super chat that I said I would get to from earlier. Chrono Rig, thank you for the super chat, by the way. Hey, Andres, do you see Nintendo revealing the price at the beginning of the Direct or at the end? And Xenoblade X this weekend, let's go. Yeah, Xenoblade X this weekend, let's go. I actually am attending a wedding this weekend, so I don't even know if I'm going to play it. Like, I'm probably not going to play it until next week. So I'm just going to be busy. Well, maybe Sunday night. Maybe Sunday night. Yeah, I might start Sunday night. But I started MEO. I haven't bought it yet because if like the first few chapters are free. So we'll see. And I'm also playing Pokemon Fire Red right now. So
I am being a horrible blasphemer, and I am focusing on getting my PC set back up so I can play PC games, and my PS5 set back up so I can play that. And then when Switch 2 comes out, eventually, after I start playing those games, I will play Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, hopefully with a 4K patch.
Yeah.
Maybe at 60 FPS. We're lucky.
Maybe. But to Chrono Riggs, question: do we see Nintendo revealing the price at the beginning of the Direct or at the end? And it's a good question.
What did they do before? It was kind of towards the beginning, wasn't it? I feel like we didn't have to, or maybe it was towards the. I don't think it was the end. But maybe. Oh no, maybe it was the end. No, was it the end? Okay, I don't know. Apparently, I just don't know because I just said literally every option. Your face makes me believe you may know.
I don't know, Brandon.
You don't know, okay.
I don't know.
We should go look.
I got it. Yeah, I mean, can we skim it real quick?
I'm sure we can find it pretty easy.
So let me first pull up that presentation. If I can find it. Do I have it saved on it? It's probably better to just do it on YouTube though.
I feel like the end kind of makes sense because then you can be like, here's the price. Also, pre-orders start after the event.
Yeah,
or like the next day. Or whatever.
I believe it would be towards the end. Like that is my initial gut thought.
Yeah. Show us all the reasons why it needs to be the price it is before you give us the price.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah. So I am currently skimming through to see if they're gonna say if there's like a screen that shows the price. I'm seeing the controller overview. Now they're starting to show different games. 1-2 Switch, ARMS, Splatoon. I don't think it was at the beginning, so I do think it's probably Mario Odyssey.
Yeah, I think it was at the end.
Xenoblade, SMT5, Dragon Quest. Okay, so now I'm 44 minutes into the presentation. All right, the Bethesda talking about Skyrim. Okay. What I think might be easy to miss is there might be a moment where they just kind of like, because they haven't announced the release date yet, I don't think. All right, so now I'm 55 minutes in. Okay. Should I just share it with you guys at this point?
I think you probably just look at the end because it's probably at the end. Or start at the end and go back.
This may lag. I'm not sure.
And a number of third-party partners.
Okay.
Today, you heard from some of these developers.
55 minutes in.
But there are still many others working hard inside Nintendo to
I think
develop.
he's just about to show off like other developers who have said they're going to make Switch games.
In addition to the franchises our fans have loved,
There you go.
we will also introduce the world to new forms of entertainment made possible by the unique characteristics of the Nintendo Switch hardware and the Joy-Con controllers. Since we revealed new colors of Joy-Con during this presentation, allow me to share with you our Nintendo Switch product configurations.
Okay, so it's probably here.
The Nintendo Switch
Like
system
right after
includes
this.
Yeah.
the Nintendo Switch console,
They're telling us what's in the box.
a left and a right Joy-Con, Joy-Con wrist straps,
Yeah.
the Joy-Con grip, the Nintendo Switch dock,
A dog.
an HDMI cable,
Holy cow!
and an AC adapter.
All for the price
And
of.
an extra GPU.
The Pro
in the
controller
power
will
brick.
also be available separately.
Is
There will be two versions.
okay.
One model with gray
This has got
Joy-Con
to be where they say the
controllers,
price.
and another model with one neon blue and one neon red Joy-Con. Both versions
I feel
will
like
be
we
the
could put
same
this at 2 times
suggested
speed.
retail price.
This has got to be the price.
We have shared a great deal of information with you through this presentation, and more details will be available on our
Wait, he didn't
Nintendo
say the
Switch
price.
homepage after this presentation
They do
ends.
say the price.
But first, I would like to ask Nintendo of Europe and Nintendo of America to share their messages with their fans watching
Where do they
around.
say the price?
Where did they say the price?
Take it away.
Did they already
Thank you,
say
Mr.
it?
Kimishima.
I don't know.
I'm Satoru Shibata of Nintendo of Europe.
Maybe because
Maybe
it's
it's
Good
after
morning,
regions?
everybody in Europe. I'd like to thank you for getting up so early to watch. I'm so excited for you to finally know all about Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch has a very unique appeal, as you saw. I will join some of the events.
We're here getting ready to show
Maybe
off
he says it.
Nintendo Switch to a small group
This
tomorrow.
is right before the Breath
But
of the
you may
Wild
get
trailer.
your own chance to play well before launch, because
Well, they
Nintendo
must have said
Switch
it
will be
earlier,
on
then.
display on 6 separate Sundays in 6 different cities across North America before you can buy it in stores. You can find all the details on nintendo.com/switch. But you'll have to show up early. There's no shortage of players who can't wait to test drive our new system. And the reasons are now clear.
Oh, maybe he says it here.
Is just around the corner on
Know everything about the game. Certainly you must know, when are we launching
I don't think they say the.
the
I
game?
don't know.
それはね、僕も知らないんですよ。東京会場の
This is
君
when they
島さ
say
んに
the
伺ってみてくだ
price
さ
or
い。
the release date.
Well,
Yeah.
I guess that settles it. There's nothing left for me to do but to throw it back to Tokyo. And Mr. Kimishima, do you have the answer to that question?
This was such a cool moment, man.
This was.
Shibata-san, Reggie-san,
I was so excited for
Miyamoto-san,
this.
and Aonuma-san. Thank you very much.
Do you have the answer for this?
You've
Just on screen.
left me with a very important
I don't know.
task, but I'll have to come back to your question in a second.
It's on screen.
The Nintendo Switch launch is just around the corner on March 3rd. Tomorrow and the next day, we'll hold a Nintendo Switch hands-on event
That'll-
at the
I don't
big
even know. I
site
don't know
in
if they even said
Tokyo.
the price there. I don't know.
They definitely say the price during this event.
And we'll begin taking pre-order reservations at retail in Japan starting January 21st.
Look through the timeline.
I did.
Look better.
I hope that we've shown enough to earn your support.
Do you know where it is?
No. You gotta
Now,
find it.
we do have one last thing to share with you today.
He didn't say the price ever.
Before we
Yeah,
do,
duh.
I would like
There's
to
no
humbly
way.
and sincerely thank everyone here for listening and everyone around the world
It may have just been
for
on the
tuning
website.
in.
It's on the website.
Yeah, like they didn't do it. I
That's on the
honestly,
website.
unless they do it right here in the beginning.
To tell you more about the new types of play that Joy-Con will enable, and to tell you about Nintendo.
Bro, I give up. I give up. I'm sorry.
When did they announce the price?
I don't know. Does anyone in the chat
There's
know?
no way it was just on the website. They,
They
say it's at the
in
beginning.
Okay, maybe it's in the beginning.
Okay, maybe I was right all along in my initial reaction, and it was at the very beginning. This is getting painful. I'm sorry, guys.
So they do show the pricing the very beginning.
We're trying our best. That's what the comments say.
People are saying the beginning.
Give us. Do you have a timestamp? I thought I saw it. Whoa, I think I saw it.
I'm skipping through right now, real quick.
Between 3 and 4 minutes.
It is. Oh yeah, it's in the beginning.
Oh my gosh.
Wait.
Andres. What the? Oh my gosh. 3 minutes, they say. 3
All right.
minutes.
Thank you for everyone not giving up on us.
We got it
yeah.
eventually. Don't
Okay.
worry.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was
we
still,
didn't.
it was still,
We did not get it eventually. Actually,
No.
You guys did. Thank you. Thank you. Comments.
I just assumed it was not in the beginning and just scrolled through the whole thing.
No.
But I mean, it's interesting to kind of look at that though, right? Because when they show, I mean, listen. I'll show you what they show, right? Just to kind of, because we don't know as much about the Switch. Like the first look trailer told us a lot, right? Like we don't know, like we don't have like a lot of Breath of the Wild footage, right? But they have this in like their like when they're announcing the launch date at the beginning of the video, right? March 3rd,
Right.
Like, and they got Breath of the Wild there. Like, are they gonna do this basically exact same thing but with Mario Kart instead? Like, they might. But I don't. I think it's easy to just assume that they are going to have the exact same kind of presentation, follow the exact same format, where they announce the price and release date, and then they do a hardware breakdown. Then they go over all the first party games, then the third party games, and then the one more thing at the end. Like maybe they do that, but I don't think they're going to do it in the same way this time.
Maybe.
I don't think so. No, I don't. I mean, I think some things are going to be similar, but like for example, I don't believe Mario Kart is going to be the closer, even if it's the launch title.
No. Mario Kart's not gonna be the closer. If anything, they'll probably open with that.
Yeah. Like I feel like Mario, like we're gonna have to have some gameplay breakdowns for some of these games, right? Mario Kart's gonna have to have like a gameplay segment.
Yeah.
I think Metroid Prime 4 will have a gameplay segment.
Yep.
Maybe Splatoon 4 will also have a gameplay segment. Switch Sports Resort or whatever that EPD group 4 game is, like that's gonna have its own segment.
I don't think the 3D Mario will have a gameplay segment because I think
don't
it'll be a
either.
little bit farther. So I think
maybe that's the closer.
They'll hold off.
Maybe
it could be the closer.
They give us like a quick 90-second, 2-minute trailer, just to be like, "Hey, this is 3D Mario. It looks awesome. We'll tell you more later." Like that. Right. I think 3D Mario makes a lot of sense as the closer. Yeah.
Wilbur First Wooster points out that the hardware doesn't need to be explained as much. I think that's a good point.
Still needs to be explained though. I don't think they can.
There are some things.
Like they need to say, "Hey, these are the new Joy-Cons."
I'm curious how much they'll talk about, like, because they need to explain like Nintendo Online upgrades and things. What the C button is for. I assume that will be a segment.
Actually,
but yeah, in some ways, I mean, they don't actually explain that it's a hybrid and you can take it anywhere and stuff. You know, obviously they're going to reinforce that anyways because that's just the marketing of the Switch. Sure. But yeah, I guess they don't need to explain that. But there's other things they need to explain. Mouse functionality, but they can use a game, right, to explain that at the same time. So that can be like part of a game segment potentially, like part of Prime 4 or something.
So, shout outs to Boo Mini for gifting not one, but 2 different memberships. Boo Mini, you the gift membership giving. You are the membership gifting MVP. Yeah.
Yes.
But I think it's a good point to bring up that I think there's gonna be other stuff that we don't really see an equivalent of in the first Switch presentation. Like, for example, Brandon, I don't know if you've heard about this because it sounds like you've been really busy lately, but did you hear that GameCube NSO seems really likely to be the Switch 2 Direct?
I have heard rumblings.
Okay, so let me just explain why, right? People think this. There was an FCC filing, and perhaps, as you know, with FCC filings, it's not the same as a patent. When there's an FCC filing, that goes public, and that product is announced a few weeks later. Nintendo Alarmo is one of the most recent examples of this, right? Remember we had an FCC filing for like this handheld device that could measure movements and stuff. And we're like, what could it be? Could it
Yeah.
be sleep related or something? And it ended up being Nintendo
And
Alarma.
it was supposed to be like almost like a cube, but I guess it
Right.
like, yeah.
Yeah, we had found some stuff that made it. They were like at least part of it was going to be cube like. Yeah, we saw it's not really a cube, but like
Right.
it's I can understand. We had some understanding of the dimensions, but not totally. So the FCC filing doesn't like leak every detail, right? But it does give you like a rough understanding of something.
I mean,
they're planning.
it's such a shape that you can't really give dimensions in a way that's not a cube. That makes sense, right?
The box is cube, but anyway. So with this new FCC filing, it is for a controller that we know for a fact, right? It is a controller, and it also has the product code for BEE, which we already know is for Switch 2. So we know it's a controller for Switch 2, and we know that it does not have NFC technology, meaning it is not the Joy-Cons. We've already seen proof that the Joy-Cons will have NFC, which also seems obvious, right? Why would Nintendo abandon Amiibo? And by extension, we would also assume it's not a Pro Controller, because the Pro Controller would also probably have NFC technology like Switch 1, right? I mean, maybe it's not. It's possible that maybe the Pro Controller this time doesn't have the NFC tech there, but it would be weird to not include that.
It would be weird, especially because those chips are. I don't believe they're very expensive at all.
Yeah. So basically, what we're seeing here is it's a Switch 2 controller, but something that's more so in line with a lot of the NSO controllers we've gone throughout the Switch era, right? Like the NES, the SNES, the N64. And what really kind of sends people in the direction of Nintendo GameCube, though, beyond all this, is that there is a picture that shows how it kind of looks from the rear. Now, all you see is like a square, but within that square, there's also a part that shows where the label would go. And that's exactly where the label goes on the GameCube controller, right? It's a very unique layout. And so the layout matches to the GameCube controller. We don't see like the GameCube buttons. We just see like where the label would go, right? It's very vague and ambiguous. But it matches that. It doesn't have NFC tech. It is a Switch 2 controller. So it's probably not a Joy-Con. It's probably not a Pro Controller. What else could it be? So because of this, people are thinking in the Switch 2 Direct a few weeks from now, as we tend to, when we get these NFC filings, there tends to be an announcement a few weeks later.
Right.
There will be an announcement regarding this device. And so it may be the case during the Switch 2 Direct, Nintendo's going to announce the different things about their improved online service. And that may include GameCube coming to Nintendo Switch Online. And that also may include, hey, here's a GameCube controller that you will be able to get as well. So that's something else that happened this past week. Doesn't guarantee that GameCube's coming to NSO, but it's probably our best evidence yet of GameCube coming to NSO. We've seen patents and trademarks, and there's been all these little things over the last few years, but this FCC filing is our best chance, best hope of GameCube actually coming. And it makes sense because this is the beginning of a new generation, and you're going to want to get people interested in your online service, and it's a good opportunity to kind of bolster that. So what's one way you do that? GameCube NSO is a great idea. But this kind of takes me in another direction that I want to take. We can touch on that stuff too, but the reason I brought up the GameCube stuff though is that this Switch 2 Direct isn't just going to have, hey, here's some first-party games, here's some third-party games, here's a trailer on the hardware, it comes out on May 15th, right? It's going to be a little bit, there's going to be some other stuff, like telling us about maybe GameCube NSO, just their overall new approach to online. Like, what is that C button? Is it, we've heard that it's about doing group chats with different NSO members. And so that would be a part of the online service perks, right? So they may have a whole other segment that's just talking about the different advantages to online on Switch 2. So that's something that could make this Direct very different from the Switch 1 presentation. But here's another one. They may want to have a segment talking more so about backwards compatibility and also differentiating that from Switch 1 games. They're seeing improvements on Switch 2.
Right.
Maybe this is where they talk about the Breath of the Wild remaster, or if it's even deemed as a remaster, but just, some kind of improvement. So these are things that will be unique to the Switch 2 presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Especially the backwards compatibility and like improved games, because obviously we know about backwards compatibility, right? That it's a thing, and that you're going to be able to play pretty much all, with very few exceptions, all your digital and physical games from Switch 1 on Switch 2 for the most part. And I don't know if they'll get into the exceptions because I feel like they're going to be so rare that it's like not something they ever really need to ever highlight. It may just be like some list somewhere on their website at some point or something, but I don't think in a direct they need to highlight the games that aren't going to be there. But as far as like what kind of what we can expect for improvements on Switch 1 software is going to be interesting, because I do expect there to be a two-tiered approach. One tier where they go in and specifically patch games to make them have improved versions for the Switch 2, and then obviously the lower tier where it just, by nature of being on a more powerful system, has certain improvements. There's different ways they could go about this. I'm very curious if they'll try to leverage any software features that have not been announced to try to improve above like what you get natively on Switch 1. That would be interesting, because I don't, obviously not every game can just have DLSS in the way it normally works, but I'm curious if they can add some other like form of upscaling that could just be injected into any
FSR 5
game. FSR 5
and blast processing.
Yes. But no, for realsies, there are, like, I would be curious if there's any form of DLSS that they can inject, because there is research into that field. Obviously, you're not going to get something that has the quality of a native DLSS implementation that has access to all kinds of different data about the game and how it's rendered, but you could have something that looks at the final image and tries to upscale that without as many inputs, and still uses machine learning and tries to get a higher looking image out of that. Maybe they have something like that that could work for any game, even if they don't get patches. So you at least get some kind of boost above native for those type of titles. Or maybe they introduce something like Xbox has an FPS boost feature where they go into games and just like allow you to run them at higher frame rates, and that's it. Like that's the only change. It's like, okay, now this game runs at 60 FPS. I think that could be something interesting. So I'm curious if they'll, like, what extent the backwards compatibility will be improved over Switch 1 natively. Because of course, if you play a game that has dynamic resolution, you're going to get a much higher resolution. You're going to get to the top of that cap, and if the frame rate drops in a game, you're going to get a smoother frame rate. But above and beyond that, for games that are never going to get dedicated patches, I'm curious if they'll have any improvements for those.
Right. I think about, I mean, my mind is on GameCube right now, but because I think that there could be some improvements to those games. But yeah, I think you pretty much just expanded upon my thinking regarding backwards compatibility and stuff. So
yeah,
we'll see what they do with that. But let's talk about the GameCube stuff though, right? Like, because I mean, like, how do you feel about that? Like, one, do you think is that FCC filing enough for you to be like, oh yeah, this might happen, or are you still very skeptical?
I'm curious about the timing, because I do feel like this is going to happen, but I expected to see this like around September, not now.
Sure, like I get what you mean.
Because that is typically when they announce those kind of like big changes, right?
Right.
So, and also there's just going to be so much to talk about here, even with having a dedicated segment for Switch Online. I feel like the base features for Switch Online alone might be enough to carry it for those first few months. Having native voice chat, having chat rooms, maybe having an alternative to friend codes, being able to invite people from inside the system to games very easily. Maybe even Discord integration if they want to do if they want to go that far, like the other systems have. I
Yeah.
feel like there's other things that they can talk about, and it just seems like a bit of a weird time. I'm also curious if this could just be for like Smash, because obviously GameCube controllers are super, super popular
Yeah.
for Smash.
Well, Red
So-
Dragon in the chat just provided a very good idea.
Okay.
I doubt it's Smash. Just for the record, like maybe, because what are the odds we see Smash in this direct? I don't know. Like that would be
I'm
exciting.
hoping that we don't see Smash in this direct, because I assume that would mean that that's going to be like Smash Ultimate Plus, and
Yeah.
not a new Smash.
Yeah, but I mean, it's possibly a Smash controller, right? I would say that the GameCube NSO thing still feels a little bit more likely compared to that, in my opinion. However, this other idea, I didn't think about this, and this makes a lot of sense. So Red Dragon said, I think that FCC filing is for a keyboard and not a GameCube controller remake. Like that
Keyboard.
That's an idea, because the thing is, well, mouse and keyboard,
Yeah.
right? Like obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious, but you can attach a keyboard to your Switch.
I feel like Nintendo isn't going for mouse and keyboard, though. I
They
think
got
they're
the
going for
mouse
mouse and
Joy-Con.
joystick.
I agree, but it could be an option, and that's something they might be like, hey, so here's a mouse controller feature. You can play it with your Joy-Con, or if you really like that PC setup, we have a Nintendo version of a keyboard.
I mean, that'd be good for third parties for sure, like first-person shooters. It could work really well. 'Cause I'm
Yeah.
curious if all third parties will support like the mouse and Joy-Con setup. Though I would hope they would. But
Yeah.
also people may just prefer keyboard and mouse. I'm not against that being a potential accessory. I just
Yeah.
don't think it's the main way that Nintendo sees that feature. Like, I don't think they see it as a keyboard mouse feature necessarily. They see it as like a mouse feature.
We won't know.
We don't
until
know.
They show us,
We don't
right?
know.
But I think it is a valid consideration, right? Like maybe the FCC filing is for a keyboard somehow.
It
Like,
definitely could
we
be. I'm not
don't
gonna write it
know,
off.
right? I mean, something else to point out is that the image is rectangular. So, like, what if
Right,
it's a
but as we
keyboard-
were
like,
saying with Alarmo, that doesn't
It's a very
necessarily
vague-
mean anything.
Right, it's a very vague, ambiguous thing. It just got to fit within a rectangular shape. Like, yeah, a controller does fit within a rectangular shape, but so does a keyboard. So,
Yeah.
We'll see on that. Although it might be worth looking into if there are dimensions, because if there are dimensions, that could help to clarify. It could be a mini keyboard, maybe, right? But I think that
I would
would
assume
be
it wouldn't be a
into,
full-size keyboard.
right?
Maybe like a 60% board or something.
Now I'm like,
Maybe
now
we
I
get a
wanna
new
see-
Mario teaches typing.
I didn't notice dimensions, but I didn't look very hard. So maybe let's see. I'm gonna pull up the patent if it's still available to be looked at.
Yeah, the dimensions could tell a lot. Because even a
something
60%
tells-
keyboard is going to be a lot bigger than a GameCube controller, right?
Right. I feel like there's probably not dimensions though, because I don't think so. But I'm taking a glance here.
I guess it could be a
I-
WASD gaming keyboard, Red Dragon.
I'm scrolling through. I don't see any patents here, but I mean, it's possible that it's elsewhere. Maybe something else will pop up on this, and we'll have dimensions. Because I remember we didn't see the dimensions immediately for the Alarmo FCC filing, but then we found them.
Does the FCC filing, is it just text?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay. This is no images to show.
Well, there's some stuff.
Is it
Anyway,
helpful?
I can't find. No,
Okay.
no, it's not.
I was just curious if there was anything you
I
could
mean,
pull, 'cause
I
actually haven't
told you,
seen these.
I told you all the relevant information. So
Right. I assumed there weren't like images or anything like a patent would have.
No, it's not like a patent. No. All right. So we don't know what it is, right? But I mean, GameCube seems like the best bet, but also it's such a cool thing. We're like, well, maybe we need more evidence, right?
Right.
Anyway. So I want to point this super chat out. Jose MC, thank you for the super chat. Jose says, Brandon's voice reminds me of that dude from Scott Pilgrim versus the World. That's
Michael Cera.
It's a good movie.
I've not seen that movie. I've been meaning to watch it, but I just have not gone around to it.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Brie Larson's in that movie. She
does not up my opinion of the movie, to be honest.
Well, but she does.
It doesn't make it worse, though.
She does her own version of Black Sheep, which is a fun song.
Baba Black Sheep?
By Metric.
I don't know what song you're talking about.
Just look it up. I'll show you later. It's really good. Anyway. There's a lot of reason to be excited about this presentation, right? Like there's so much different stuff. So yeah, I'm just so ready for this thing. We talk about the Metroid Prime 4 stuff. I see something interesting here in the chat. So Chaos Theory here says the Kiwi Talks Metroid Prime 4 rumor was confirmed to be pure hype, copium, and conjecture on his part. It was confirmed on the Omega Metroid podcast Discord server where Kiwi Talks elaborated further. I will need some proof of that because I don't think you're correct. Just because, well, I mean, I've seen other things that Kiwi Talks has elaborated on and has indicated that it's more than just that. So I would need to see it. I need receipts, but you know, either way, like Metroid Prime 4 is likely going to be in the presentation. So we'll see what happens there. Red Dragon asked, do you think they will bring Magic again to the Direct? Oh yeah, there's going to be Magic. By the way, shout outs to Botox Games in the chat. They were asking about you earlier, Bo. We got to do another discussion together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Botox Games, Metroid Prime 4 and the Switch one, February Direct. Yes. On that note, do we think that there's any chance for? I actually had a dream. I had a dream this past night that there was a partner showcase, and in the partner showcase, they announced at first I was like, oh my god, it's Metroid Prime 4 in my dream. But then as I was like watching the trailer, I was like, wait, this is kind of like kitty chibi-ish. And then I realized, oh, this is a trailer for a Metroid Prime mobile game.
Oh no.
No, but it wasn't, I wasn't like disappointed, but I was excited. I was like, oh, we're getting a Metroid Prime mobile game, which is going to get people like amped and excited for Metroid Prime 4. Like, it wasn't like, oh, it's instead of Metroid Prime 4. It was a partner showcase. It was a partner showcase. Like, it was just surprising to even see a mobile game in a partner showcase. But I'd be down, you know? That'd be cool. So
something to play on my phone.
And like when I woke up, I was like, wait, that wasn't real news.
Oh no. I'm so sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no, Prime Mobile wasn't real. Oh no.
Yeah.
Devastating.
Listen to the chat. We believe in Metroid. We do. We believe in Metroid.
Yes.
But Brandon, is there anything else that has you hyped for the Direct? Beyond Metroid, beyond us getting some online updates and seeing what they're going to do with backwards compatibility and maybe some cross-gen enhancements, like what else about this presentation has you itching for this event? Like what are you like, oh my god, this is just going to just change my life?
I mean, I talked about the ray tracing because that is a big one. I'm curious. I don't know. I guess seeing the games, really, it's just individual games now that it comes down to. Like, I'm pretty fine on system capabilities. Like, I want to see what third parties do for the system, mainly because I'm capable of what the system can do. But I probably won't be playing many third parties on the Switch 2, just because I generally didn't do that with Switch 1 either. But maybe the versions are good enough where I'm like, oh my gosh, these are actually like, close enough to where I'd like to have it on the go as well. Even though I don't plan to go that much, just the fact that it can is still worth it.
Talk with you about that Oblivion remake?
With me, no. But I did.
Have you heard about it?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, like there's some reason to think the Oblivion remake might be in Switch 2 Direct, because apparently it's going to be announced in a few weeks and it's coming out before June.
Right.
The timing of it. Oh, okay. So the timing of it's just very close to when we expect Switch 2. Obviously, if it's going to be announced in a few weeks, what's in a few weeks? The Switch 2 Direct, right? And then if it's coming out before June, what do we think is coming out before June? Switch 2. Not everyone thinks it's coming out before June, by the way. We do, but if it comes out June, it's not the end of the world. But the point is, like, if you align with the thinking that Switch 2 is out in May, then the idea of this Oblivion remake being a launch title for Switch 2, it's pretty conceivable.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be released on May 15th, because that's when Doom Eternal or Doom Dark Ages is being released, and I don't think Bethesda is going to release 2 games on the exact same day. That seems highly unlikely.
Well, different kinds of games.
Around that, even so, releasing 2 games on the exact same day from the same publisher seems like a stretch.
I kind of want to go back to the Wii U launch, because I remember the Wii U had a lot of games, and I bet you there was multiple games from the same publisher. Granted, Wii U launch was maybe a bad thing. Like, maybe you don't want to emulate what happened back then. But you got to
keep in mind this game isn't only targeting Switch 2 though. It's going to be coming to every console and PC.
I agree.
And releasing
By the way,
2 games on the
so
same day.
Here's a list. Here's a list of all the Wii U launch games.
Let me
show you. Check this out. All right. So, confirmed launch day games in North America, just so we're clear. Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft. There's any other Ubisoft games? ESPN Sports Connection, another Ubisoft game. Just Dance 4. Another Ubisoft game. Rabbids Land. What the hell is that?
Ubisoft crazy. I don't know.
Your Shape Fitness Evolved 2013. Zombie
To be
U.
fair, most of these seem like they're shovelware.
Ubisoft
Whereas
put out
Doom the Dark Ages and the Oblivion Unreal Engine 5 remake are much, much bigger projects than probably any of these games.
I'm just saying, Ubisoft published 6 titles day one for Wii U.
And have you heard of half of them?
Yes, I've heard of Assassin's Creed and Zombie U. That's 2 of them.
That's 2 of 6.
I mean, I know what ESPN is. Like, I can tell what this is, but I don't remember this at release. If that's what
Just Dance. I guess.
This is obviously some sort of Rabbids game, but I have zero recollection of it. I will tell you that. I do remember Just Dance.
Of course, yes.
That's 3. Zombie U, Assassin's Creed,
okay,
Just Dance.
Well, you
that's
got
3.
me there, I guess.
Yeah. Right. But look, Namco Bandai, Tekken Tag Tournament, Tank. I remember this. That's 2.
I do remember Tank.
Is it? They only had 2? They only had 2. Activision had Call of Duty. That was a banger. Is that their one thing? That was their one thing. And look, oh no, Skylanders Giants. I know what that is.
Don't know what that is.
So they had 2, right? Nintendo, what that Sing Party, Nintendo Land. They published some third-party offerings. Ninja Gaiden 3, NSMBU. EA had a few. Madden, Mass Effect, EA Sports, like FIFA. I think there's a few others. No, that's it. 3. Anyways, as you can see, right? Like, yeah, there were publishers that had more than one game. So it's not completely out of left field to do so. However, to your point, like if you look at the games that are provided
these days, though.
Well,
And
that
those,
and
yeah, if you look at the
they're
games,
different. They're very different from each other. While I will say that Doom and Oblivion are different from
they
each other.
reach very similar audience.
Yes, that I
Extremely
also agree
similar
with.
audience.
So I would say that there might be a little bit of a gap. Although on the flip side, right, like this Oblivion remake's coming out soon. Like that's if we're to believe this report about the Oblivion remake coming out soon, we already know Doom's coming out May 15th. So like regardless, like this Oblivion thing's coming out soon. So like it's not like they're gonna have these games separated by months. Like they're coming out within a month or two of each other, apparently.
Right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a lot more reasonable than the exact same day, though. I just don't think it's
Yeah.
going to be the same day.
It may not be.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of hope I'm not, because I want to play both those games. Like, literally, both of those games appeal to me. I don't want them to come out the same day, because then I have to choose between them.
I'm very excited for the Oblivion remake. There's like a lot of supposed quality of life changes. It's made with Unreal Engine 5. So, you know,
I've never played Oblivion,
I'm
but
eager.
my dad played Oblivion a lot when I was a kid. I was not allowed to play it, but and after a while, I wasn't allowed to watch it either. But I would remember I would sneak up to my dad's door and I would crack it open and I would watch through the crack. I would watch him play Oblivion and Skyrim. These games are very important to me from my childhood, and I would love to actually experience it in a remade, gorgeous form.
Yeah,
I've played Skyrim. I just have not played Oblivion.
Yeah, I've played both. I didn't play that, but not a lot of either. I've never finished it.
Yeah, I haven't played a lot of Skyrim. I've played like 30, 40 hours of Skyrim. I played it like way later, like 1 or 2 years after the re-release came out on PC. I bought it, and I was like, "This is really janky, broken."
Yeah.
If I played it at the time, though, man, I would have put hundreds of hours.
That's the thing. Like with these RPGs, I gotta be selective. But Oblivion, there's something about it that calls to me.
Oh yeah.
Alma in the chat asked me,
play it.
Would you love to see the Resident Evil remakes on Switch 2? The answer is yes, I would love to see the Resident Evil remakes on Switch 2. I actually haven't gotten around to playing Resident Evil 4 yet. So, I mean,
I think
if we're correct,
the nice thing is
these
are all pretty much guaranteed to come eventually.
You would think, right? Yeah, because I mean, they made sure to put so many Resident Evil games on Switch, even though a lot of them are cloud. Like,
right?
It makes sense.
These are going to be easily doable
actually
on
run
Switch
them.
2.
Right. Yeah. So, it does seem pretty reasonable. There are rumors for Elden Ring and Sparking Zero also coming. I already 100%ed both. So,
I think there's going to be
100% is not true, but I played both to completion and beyond already. So, you know, I've played all the DLC for both, although for Sparking Zero there's more DLC coming, but I've already paid for it all. Like I'm not getting them for Switch 2. I don't need that. But
I guess
yeah.
Sorry. I guess going back to like what I'm excited about the Direct, I do think the third-party support is going to be many times better than the original Switch. I think there's going to be a ton of games coming. I think there's going to be games coming, like multiple games every month from third parties coming for a while. I think there's going to be a lot of games that were like PS4 generation games that didn't come, that are going to come over. And then I think there's also going to be a lot of current gen games that are coming out that are going to either be day and date or close to that. I do think there's going to be major third-party games coming out pretty much every month of the Switch, possibly multiple per month on certain months. High-profile third-party games, which we did not see on Switch. It was kind of more every couple months we'd see a big one. I think it's going to be pretty much like as many third parties as we do like big Nintendo games.
Yeah, and you know, I am very curious how that third party section is going to go. Do you anticipate any third party exclusives?
Ooh, I would hope so. I don't want to predict any specifically because I don't
Astral
think.
Chain 3, baby.
Well, just take my only
I did say
pick, I
3.
guess.
Astral Chain 2
You
because
did.
they haven't ever gone to
You
3,
did.
but we'll get both.
That is the only one I was gonna guess. Yes, Astral Chain 2 is what I would like it to be. I think we
My
we
brain
definitely
had
could.
Bayonetta 3, and like I kind of
Bayonetta
mixed them up.
4. I
Right.
think Bayonetta
Like,
3
there
is
is no
going to be
3 to
one of
be
the
had.
games. I do think Bayonetta 3 is going to be one of the games that gets an upgrade.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the games that will scale the best from Switch. I think it's like Prime 4 that game can scale very well. I think it's going to look very nice. It's going to run a lot better on Switch too. And
There is something to note
much
about
higher
this
resolution.
game, so yeah. Who pointed out in the chat? Like, almost says Platinum is in shambles right now, though. Like, a lot of talent has left. Hideki Kamiya is no longer working for Platinum, right? So it is going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
But Platinum Games still exists, right? They still have the rights to some of these games. Like, I don't.
Why? That's why they
maybe
need to do an upgraded version of Bayonetta 3. Get some more sales.
Right, at least that.
Easy wins.
Maybe Astral Chain 2 or Bayonetta 4 we don't see because of their inner turmoil right now.
I think if Nintendo should buy them if it gets that bad. If they're not going to be able to even like make any games, like just buy them, please. Do something with these IPs.
I'm now
don't
curious,
just let it
like,
die.
What are they up to right now? Like, what's their plan? This is hilarious. Bo, I don't know if you're still in the chat, right? But I just want you to know I'm sharing this. I googled Platinum Games. Bo's right there.
Oh my gosh.
Bo's right there. So
yes, we all know employee of the month at Platinum Games.
Yeah, I'm screenshotting this. It's hilarious. That's what happens when you're a content creator. Your face goes everywhere. By the way, guys, thank you for all the blessings in the chat. I appreciate that. Protecting me from the demons consuming my souls when I sneeze. You never know. Yeah, so I wanted to look up Platinum Games just to see like how they've been doing lately with their like game releases, because I haven't kept too up to date on that. Well, so apparently they're co-developing Ninja Gaiden 4.
Okay.
And
why are they in such a bad position? Because I feel like their games have been doing well and been received well, so I don't understand what the problem is.
Kamiya left. I mean, it's not just about putting games out. You know, there's a lot of other factors there. But I don't know the full story, so I don't want to dive too much further into it. Almost says, I'm pretty sure Sega will hit big on the Switch too. I would love to see that. Man, I want to see like a big... I'd love for Nintendo and Sega to do another collaboration. Remember F-Zero GX? Like, what if Nintendo collabs with Sega again to make another F-Zero game? That would be a good time.
Be dope.
Or, you know, what if Nintendo continues their collaboration with Bandai Namco and they're like, hey, remember how you did great with Star Fox? Here's another one. Like, I would... I'd be down for that. Like,
I'd be hyped. I'd be hyped.
Yeah, be very hyped. Or maybe Nintendo could like work with Capcom to do something different. Like when I say different, like something we haven't seen. Like, what if we see?
We need a new Zelda from them.
No, I was thinking, like you look at.
I would
Capcom's
be down for a new 2D
right?
Zelda from Capcom. To be honest.
Oh, I mean, they have done those before, right? Like, obviously, Grezzo's working on it now, but you know that I would be open to that. But I was thinking, like, you look at Resident Evil, you look at Monster Hunter, like, is there a Nintendo IP that could benefit from some of the talent that Capcom has clearly shown strengths with?
Interesting.
I mean, what if they were to go back and do like an Eternal Darkness, like sequel or something, or Geist? You know, like they work together on some sort of like horror game. That could be
cool.
Very cool. And it wouldn't have to be like a giant, like high budget thing. You know, it would be something smaller. but you know, like there are games that can be smaller and they can still look impressive, right? They don't have to be.
Yeah, I mean,
like
Capcom.
you could have like a 6 to 8 hour horror game that looks visually impressive but isn't like a giant AAA effort, you know?
I mean, Resident Evil in general has a pretty good scale to it. Like, even if you look at Resident Evil Village, it's not like it's this huge open world with like a billion places to go. No, it's a very tight, scripted, mostly linear game, but it's very, very well done. I mean, it's not super long, but it's very good. I mean,
Very good. Yeah, I enjoyed Village. It was fun. So we're gonna be wrapping up tonight's live streams, guys. So any final points or questions you want us to get to, put it in now. We're closing in on the 2 hour mark, and that's gonna be the hard cap.
right.
But Brandon, I do want to talk about some other things that have me excited for this presentation. Obviously, I want to learn about the console itself, right? Yes, I am excited for Mario and Mario Kart and Metroid Prime 4. Like those are the givens. I'm excited to see some third-party announcements, as we kind of touched on. However, and the online stuff too, like that as well. There are other games that are going to be there. You know,
Right.
I mentioned Splatoon 4, right? That would be I'd be very curious to see Splatoon 4. Switch Sports Resort, that as well. You know, that's already like 5 big Nintendo games we may see there. I do think Project Legacy has a better chance than some people may want to give it credit for. That would be a Monolith Soft title. Yeah, and I mean, I think that one, you know, like
I would be kind of shocked if Monolith Soft didn't show up to this presentation.
Well, I mean, the reason why it wouldn't be is because Xenoblade Chronicles X is coming out in a day and a half or less.
Yeah.
Like a day and a couple hours.
That's for Switch One. And
but
it's a remaster with some DLC.
Right. And they've been working on this game for 8 years. Apparently. Right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a good chance that we see this game there. I mean, the way I look at it, remember those codename leaks from last year? I think that may pretty much tell us what Nintendo's plan is for 2025, because a few of them were for 2024. They already came out. Mario Party Jamboree and Echoes of Wisdom. The rest of them,
right,
I think are coming out this year, except for Silver Star, Alma, because with Silver Star, when Midori put out the Silver Star thing, they said they don't quite know what's going on with that one. I think Silver Star is Donkey Kong. That's a theory. We do not know what it is. It could be a canceled project.
Funny story.
But as we talked about earlier today, right, it does seem like the Mario team could have more than one project in the works. But what's your funny story?
Funny story. There's a road very near my house, and it's called Silver Star Lane. Every time I pass it, I'm just like, Donkey Kong. That's it. That's the whole story.
That's it.
I've heard this about Silver
For
Star.
those who don't know about the Silver
Star
Star theory. Yeah. I'll explain the Silver Star theory briefly for those that don't know. Hold on. I'm reloading my chat because it crashed on me.
Oof.
Yeah, as Gerard said, Silverback Gorilla. So the idea behind Silver Star, right? We know it's one of the codename leaks, but according to Midori, they don't know what's going on with it. However, Red Star was the codename for Super Mario Odyssey. Red is used for 3D Mario games. That's the codename they use. Like Red's always for 3D Mario, right? A star has to do with Odyssey. So what would Silver be? It's not Mario, but it's something relating to Odyssey. Okay. And then in terms of, like, Silver could possibly relate to Donkey Kong because, yes, Silverback Gorilla. Donkey Kong's a gorilla. Also, Super Donkey Kong is silver. So there could be something there, right? Like maybe they kind of think of it as, like, think of it like this: Super Mario Odyssey, Super Donkey Kong Odyssey. Super Donkey Kong is silver. Silver Star.
Right.
Star is Odyssey. Like there's actually, like, from a codename perspective, that's actually a very that would be a very good reason to give it that codename. because it's a code name, right? The idea behind a code name is it's not to tell you the actual name of the game, but it's just something that the devs use to describe that game before they come with, with something official and public. So
Right.
there's that, right? But the reason why we think that's just how it connects, right? Like in terms of naming, but in terms of like the Donkey Kong thing, there are two different stories that have circulated throughout the Switch era. One is that Activision, through Vicarious Visions, was working on an open world Donkey Kong game. This has been widely reported. It was canceled after a few months. Nintendo really was excited about the project, though, and it's thought that they may have decided, okay, we're going to do our own thing with Donkey Kong after that point. We haven't seen any new Donkey Kong since. However, another story came up. Both are rumors, but the Activision thing is widely reported by credible sources. The Donkey Kong rumor of the game being made by Mario Odyssey is a little bit of it's not as concrete, right? But I did personally hear about a Donkey Kong project years ago from a trusted source, but I didn't know anything else. I wasn't told anything else. Just it's Donkey Kong. That's all I was told. But this other rumor that I'm getting at, right, is that apparently it was a Donkey Kong game being made by the Mario Odyssey team. And so when you think about, they were working on an open world Donkey Kong game, it was canceled. The Mario Odyssey team hasn't made anything throughout the entire Switch era. What's going on? There's this rumor that the Mario Odyssey team, or at least a part of the Mario Odyssey team, is working on a Donkey Kong game. You look at all the Donkey Kong marketing that's been going on, right? You have the recent game, you have the park, you have him in the movie. There seems to be something going on there. And then we have these codename leaks and the Silver Star thing, and it seems to connect to Donkey Kong, but of course, obviously, we don't know for sure. But it's very clearly at least some sort of Odyssey-related project. Maybe there's something there. And yes, Gerard, Jungle Beat was made by the Mario team. Yes, before they were considered the Mario team. Yeah. So, because they made Mario Galaxy, and then they made Galaxy after Jungle Beat. Yeah. So there is some history there. But anyways, when it comes to Silver Star, that's one of the code names I do not expect to be soon, because Midori suggested that they don't really know what's going on with that one as opposed to the others. So I don't think it's on the same timeline as the other games. And also, if it is Donkey Kong, it makes sense for Nintendo to wait on Donkey Kong at this point and just focus on Mario, but then afterwards, you do Donkey Kong. It's all theory, right? Theory plus rumor. We don't know what's actually going to happen.
I think it's believable, though, that the code names, the rest of them, are coming out this year, or at least fairly
within
soon.
That, like that first year, right? Like they're all like close. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's...
Some have theorized that maybe Silver Star is for Mario Kart 9. I don't think that's what it is, but I will say that Mario Kart 9 looks a little bit similar to Mario Odyssey, but I don't think that's what it is. I think I think Mario Kart would have a very different code name.
Yeah.
Super Luigi Kong asks me, if DK gets announced, do you see it releasing this year or next? I think I kind of just talked about it. Like, my expectation currently, based off what we understand, which again is based off leaks and rumors and theory, right? I'm thinking Donkey Kong does not come out this year. We just got Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. They're going to talk about the movie where Donkey Kong will likely have a role in that movie. We have a 3D Mario game coming probably later this year. There is Mario Kart as well that has Donkey Kong with the new design in there. Like, there are Donkey Kong things going on. But I don't think we see the game this year. I think next year or the year after is when it happens. But I do believe that there's a Donkey Kong project that is close. That I do think.
Yeah. I don't think we'll see it in this April 2nd direct, though.
Right. I think Mario takes the spot. Like Donkey Kong and Mario aren't the same, but it's maybe a little bit kind of like the Oblivion Doom thing. Like there is some overlap there. I mean, Mario and Donkey Kong are in the same universe, and they're both platformers. If I think Donkey Kong might be a 3D Donkey Kong game, and so if I'm right, if I do not know, then I think that's more reason to maybe space them out, right? especially if
Yeah.
both are being made by the same EPD group. They may want to space that out a little bit. One project may not be totally done yet. They may be prioritizing Mario first, and then they'll finish up Donkey Kong a little bit later.
Right.
Um,
And this
yeah.
presentation, I assume they're going to focus on games coming out probably mainly this calendar year.
Yes, but that doesn't mean they won't tease some things for the future.
No, they usually do tease a game or two past the timeline of when most of their games are landing.
Yeah, they may not need to, but you know, they might.
They usually do, at least one or two. But yeah, not much more than that. For the main part, I expect almost every game to be this calendar year.
Yeah. Django in the chat. I think the legacy codename could be for Xenosaga 4. Before Xenoblade Xenosaga was Monolith Baby, and it was supposed to be a 6-game series instead of a trilogy. I know a lot of people want to see them connecting to prior games. I think it's unlikely.
I think you would have to do it in a way that is accessible to a completely new audience, because the amount of people who have played Xenosaga is so small. You can't sell Xenosaga 4 as just like straight up just continuation of 1 through 3. I don't even know
do they
how
even have the
connected
rights to
stories are.
Xenosaga? I don't think they even have the rights to Xenosaga,
I
because
don't
remember,
know.
Monolith Soft is totally owned by Nintendo now. So I don't. They would have to get the rights to Xenosaga, which they may not have. And then to Brandon's point,
I don't know if
like,
Square owns it or not.
Like, is there really that much of an audience of Xenosaga fans to where it's worth that to make that? Yeah, I would love to see, them brought. I mean, are they even on Switch? I'm not sure. I don't think they are.
I don't think they are.
No, but I would like to see the original trilogy brought over. That would be cool.
Jingo says they're owned by Bandai. The rights to Xenosaga.
I mean, so the good thing about that is that Nintendo and Bandai Namco work really well together.
That is true.
So, it's not inconceivable that eventually they could come together to some sort of agreement. But I don't know if it still, to me, seems unlikely to expect Xenosaga 4. I think Monolith Soft, whatever they do next, it's going to be something new. It's either Xenoblade or something new. I don't think they're going to go back to things to their pre-Nintendo era, unless they may have a little bit of a hand in a remastering or a remake. Like, I can see that because of the relationship between Nintendo and Bandai Namco. Like, they might help out a little bit, but I don't think they're going to make a new game. That's just my opinion, though. So we'll see.
And I feel like if they were going to make a new game, they would re-release the first 3 first, because most people have not played them. So, and we don't have access to those in general, much less like some sort of remastered or modern version. We don't have any version. So.
Yeah. I'll also say, though, I don't think Legacy is a remake. Like, I understand when you look at the name Legacy, you might think, oh, you want to think about your legacy, right? So I understand, like, how people might interpret that. I don't think that's the way it's being interpreted. So, like, I mean, I have they put out concept art for this new IP years ago. It's beautiful. And when you look at that, then you'll probably be like, oh, that's why they call it Legacy. Let's see. Project 2. Let's see. Sometimes it's annoying when I search for image files on the computer and they're like, oh, well, that doesn't exist. Like, yes, it does.
Yeah. Windows 11 is kind of garbage.
Yeah, so I'll open this one too. All right, let me screen share this. So this is some concept art, right, for when they put this stuff up when they were hiring for the new IP. Right. And like, this looks almost like a Dark Souls kind of like game, except that it has Zelda symbols here and almost like a goddess-like statue. Again, concept art from a game 8 years ago they were hiring for. This isn't guaranteed. This is exactly what they're going to be doing. But you think about this and this kind of world, this setting, the concept of legacy, I feel, is very applicable. And I think you make the argument even more so for this next one. Let me see if it lets me. I think I just have to add it. Okay, there we go. Share screen, window. So then there's this one, right? This looks like a warrior Princess Zelda, but there's a crown. We're talking about royalty, right? What's a really important thing about royalty, like fighting for your legacy. So
Right.
to me, like, I think more clearly when we're talking about legacy, like it has to do with this project that they were hiring for the entire Switch era. This hiring page was up and this concept art was there. I think this is what it all ties to. I will show you another piece of art we have. If you haven't seen it, I'll show you this one. This one's also really cool, but it's pretty different from the other ones. This one, I mean, it's still all potentially a part of the same kind of game, even though,
Right.
you know, again, concept art isn't necessarily guaranteed that's what's going to actually be, you know, when we see the real thing. But
there's a lot of extremely cool concept art that they've come up with in the past that
Like-
didn't not to
right, like you look at this, right?
this looks, oh my god.
This is a massive open fantasy world, right?
I would say the
Like-
closest game that I've seen these type of environments, like layered mountainous environments, like with cities, would be like Star Wars Outlaws, which has some
Interesting.
environments that actually come close to this.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is just you need some good hardware to pull this off. This
Man,
is a
like
Switch 2
imagine if just
project.
Monolith Soft has just been working on a Switch 2 game. They knew it was a Switch 2 game early on. They knew it was a Switch 2 game 8 years ago. And they've just been
Crazy.
developing a game that can realize worlds like this. You know? That's gonna be crazy, dude. It's gonna be crazy. Like, look, this is keeping in mind with the legacy thing, like just looking more closely at this image. Let me see if I can zoom in. Enhance.
And then,
Look at the city down here. Like, these are castles. These are straight up
yes.
castles, right? So, like, there is a little bit of that medieval. It's not medieval. Well, there's a little bit of that medieval element to it, right? So we talk about legacy. We got
It's
castles.
definitely
like,
fantasy vibes.
definitely fantasy, right? So yeah,
I would say it's pretty similar to Xenoblade in the way that there's like it's fantasy, but there's some like tech in there too.
yeah. It's like a merge, right? There's a little bit of fantasy and sci-fi involved for sure. Although I get the sense this will be more fantasy leaning, and they might just have like a lot of magic power systems,
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, this game that we're not even 100% sure it exists, just so we're clear, right? Like, we do
Right.
not know that it exists. But they were hiring for this game throughout the entire Switch era. They were looking to get talent for a new IP. They have these pieces of art. Then last year, they took down the page and put up a new page for a new RPG. Not too long after the end of the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 trilogy, which, you know, it's at least discussed that it's the end of the Klaus story. So we kind of already know that they want to go in a new direction after this to some extent. And we are now entering a new era. And then we also had the codename leak of Project Legacy of a Monolith Soft title. So you can interpret the hiring page being taken down in two different ways. One, whatever it was, not a thing anymore. Or two, they stopped hiring because they don't need to hire openly and publicly anymore because they are close to actually finishing this thing. So,
Right.
you know, that would align with it maybe being an early Switch 2 title. And maybe it's in the direct. Fingers
I'm
crossed.
very hopeful. I really want to
Fingers
see what
crossed.
Monolith Soft is cooking on Switch 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak ill of Xenoblade, right? Like, because Xenoblade is one of my favorite series, and Xenoblade X is amazing. It's gotten amazing reviews, and I'm gonna play it again. I've already played. I already put hundreds of hours to that game. I'm gonna play it again, buy it again.
Yeah.
But I do want to say that, you know, focusing on Xenoblade all this time in some way may have limited Monolith Soft. Now, they don't, whatever we're working on, they can explore ideas beyond the scope of what Xenoblade is. Which, by the way, Xenoblade has a large scope, right? Like physically, digitally, conceptually, but they have an opportunity to explore a little bit more. So I'm very curious on what they can do.
For sure. I want to see what they can do with some really good hardware, some power. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is just such an impressive looking game. They pull off such huge, beautiful vistas, incredible cutscenes on a massive scale. It's really, really impressive, and I can't imagine what they are going to do with something that's 10 times that power. You know?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And to close out, I'll simply say there could be a left field announcement. Maybe we do see Donkey Kong. Maybe we do see Star Fox. Maybe we do see F-Zero or Wave Race. I would be over the moon. Do I expect them?
Oh, yeah. I'm
not sure I expect them. But I do feel like it's going to be like at least one title they're like, oh, what's that? And so,
Yeah.
That's kind of like the X Factor prediction, right?
Oh, yeah.
I am getting close to my actual Switch 2 direct predictions, by the way. That may come out this weekend while I'm away for a wedding. So
Okay.
that's brewing. But anyways, I think we've reached the end of tonight's discussion.
Yes.
That was Brandon's kitty that was meowing. Ruby did
Yes.
come by for a little bit. It's like, hey, you gonna feed me yet? I'm like, don't worry, I'll get your wet food soon. And she left.
Boots woke up, got off my lap, ran around on the ground for a second, and then jumped back up and started meowing at me. And all he wanted to do was sit back down exactly where he was and sleep.
It's cute. Yeah. Connor Adamy here. You and Bo need to take time to talk about what Bo has said in the Nintendo game for 2025 video about Kirby Planet Robot coming in June, and I'm like, no. Hey, I think Robot's happening. So yeah,
sometime this year, I think.
Yeah, I did enjoy Bo's video on his predictions for games this year. I thought it was a pretty good lineup of games. So if he's correct, I'd be pretty content with that lineup. Shout outs to Lex in the chat. Shout outs to Having Hope. It approaches. Sadly, we are a minority. The masses like open world casual crap. Well, Monolith Soft makes open world hardcore gold. So we got that coming. Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye guys.